To Mr. Dana Lamon.
Thank you, Anson, Madam President, fellow Toastmasters. I've been asked to talk to you about overcoming the challenges and obstacles that I've incurred in my life. I've been told that I have 45 minutes. I know that in 45 minutes, I can spit out over 5,600 words. And I suspect that you won't remember most of them. So I'm going to tell you the three that I want you to remember. I want you to remember power, possibilities, and perseverance. Power, possibilities, and perseverance. Power is what I use to overcome the obstacles and challenges in my life. And I have had some challenges. Most of my challenges did not come from my being blind. They came from other people seeing my being blind. I became blind when I was 4 years old. I had an accident in which I fell on my head. When I fell on my head, it caused an injury serious enough that I was rushed to the hospital. The doctors took care of the wound to the head and sent me home. My mother discovered that something else was wrong because I was walking around the house with which I should have been familiar, and I bumped into the wall, and then I'd move over and I'd bump into the furniture, and she said, something else is wrong. She took me back to the hospital. The doctors discovered that I couldn't see. I lost my sight completely. With further diagnoses, they discovered that I had retina detachments. And because the retinas were detached from the back of the eyeball, light wouldn't pass through the optic nerve. I couldn't see anything at all. I had surgery to restore sight to the right eye. The retina surgery was successful. So when I went to school, between first and second grade, strike that, see, I said strike that, so now you know I'm a judge. Only a judge would say strike that. In first grade, I was able to read small print, and I went to first grade as my first year in school. In America, we have kindergarten, but I was in and out of the hospital when I should have been in kindergarten, and I have a twin sister. And my twin sister was going to first grade, and there was no way I was going to let them put me in a grade behind her. So I started first grade in school. I was able to read small print. In the summer between first and second grade, I lost some of that sight in the right eye, so I had to read large print, meaning I had to go to a different school, a school where they had books available in large print. I did that for 3 years, and then I had to read Braille because I lost some more sight that I had in the right eye. I was able to see colors until I was 16 years old. I was able to see light until I was 24 years old. Throughout my growing up, people said, he's blind, he can't. I heard that over and over again, no matter what the situation is. He's blind, he can't. For some reason, other people saw my power in my eyes. That's not where I saw my power. My power was in my mind. My power was in my will. My power was in my heart. And so long as I could imagine it, I could accomplish it. And I believe that I did have the power to do it, notwithstanding everybody else. He's blind, he can't. The very interesting thing about being blind, in fact I found it true for having any disability, is somehow when people see the disability, it permeates the entire being. So if you're blind, which means your eyes don't work, people perceive that your ears don't work either. So sometimes people speak louder to me when they discover that I'm blind. People perceive that, I'm not sure whether it's that my ears don't work, or my mouth doesn't work, or my brain doesn't work, because people, when I'm with someone, and Arlene here assists me. We've been on the road since 2 weeks ago. We started off, we went to Indonesia. And when people assist me, someone assists me, and I go to the bank, let's say, or I go to the store, they don't talk to me. They talk to the person I'm with. When I was 18 years old, I was getting ready to go off to college. My mother went with me to the bank to establish an account, and a bank account, so I have a checking account to do business while I'm in college. I went to college 3,000 miles away from home. Whoa. And at the bank, the lady in new accounts asked 3 questions of my mother. What type of account would he like? What is his social security number? How much does he wish to deposit? My mother said, well, there he is. Why don't you ask him? I went off to college. I went to a university, maybe you heard of it. I went to Yale. And Yale is an institution of intellectuals. I kind of tell this story in America. Let's see if it works in Taiwan. All right. See if you guys know these characters. Maybe it works. Yale is an institution of intellectuals. Give you an example. George Bush went to Yale. Bill Clinton went to Yale. Clarence Thomas went to Yale. So I'm at this school of intellectuals, and my classmates approached me and asked, who dresses you each morning? I, being an intellectual, gave it some thought before answering, and I said, my mother. She commutes from California to Connecticut to make sure I can put my clothes on each day. And do you know, oh, wait a minute before I tell that story. Is anybody in the room under the age of 18? Everybody over 18? Okay, then I can tell this. Do you know that people are astonished when they find out that I have 4 children? I took biology in high school, and to the best of my recollection, there is no connection between the optic nerve and the reproduction facilities. In fact, my understanding is most people turn off the light and close their eyes anyway. The power is not in the eyes. The eyes allow you to see physically, but there are people who can see who still accomplish nothing because they don't recognize where their power derives from. The power is in your ability to imagine it. And I figured if I can imagine it, I can do it. And I will prove to anybody that I can do it. In fact, you know, when I was a kid growing up, I don't know, I remember vividly my mother used to say this word, and I thought it was not such a good thing. My mother would say, you're such a stubborn little child. You're so stubborn. I heard stubborn so often. And then I realized as I got older, that's a good quality to have. I am so stubborn that I won't let somebody tell me I can't do it. When I first applied to college, I applied to 6 universities. I wanted to go to Yale. That was my first choice. When letters came out, I was accepted at Columbia, and Princeton, and MIT, and Stanford. I was rejected from Harvard. And I didn't get a letter from Yale. I didn't get a letter. I wasn't rejected. I wasn't accepted. But I had a high school friend who was a year ahead of me, and he was at Yale. So he went to the admissions office. In those days, Yale would post, the results on a wall. Anybody from the public could walk in, first floor, and look at the board. If you know the name, look up the name and find out where they rejected, where they accepted. And Harvey went to check, and it said, Dana Lamon, not considered. Harvey went up to the 3rd floor to the admissions office and demanded to know why Dana Lamon was not considered. They said, hold on, take it easy. And he looked up the file and said, oh, he's blind. And we've never had a blind student here before. We don't think he can do it. I don't know where they were looking as to where my power was. But Harvey started telling them what he saw me do in high school, and they said, put it in a letter. And the next time the committee meets, we'll consider it. A week later, I got a telegram from Yale saying that I was accepted. And I will tell you now, it is harder to get into Yale than it is to get out of Yale. I mean, once I was there, I was a math major, and it wasn't that tough to do the work assignments. But I thought, well, if I succeed at Yale, then I should be able to succeed elsewhere. In my senior year at Yale, most of the students were talking about going to law school or medical school. I'm not sure I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. A math degree, I didn't want to teach, and so I thought, law school or medical school. Will they let me argue the case or perform the surgery? I'll go to law school. And I had the gall to think that since I successfully made it through Yale, it should be no problem getting into law school. I applied to USC. I went to the interview, and the dean of admissions asked me a bunch of questions about what I could do. And he expressed doubts. He said, we've never had a blind student before. In fact, he even said, we have here at USC a 3-year program. He says, maybe, Dana, what we're talking about here for you is what would normally take 3 years, it might take you 4. And I was insulted by the suggestion. I said, Dean, if I could do Yale's 4-year program in 4 years, I can do your 3-year program in 3 years. He said, well, will you take the law school aptitude test to let me know? I said, no, it's not administered in Braille. I can't take the law school aptitude test. He said, is there any any test that is given that you could take to show me what your capabilities are? I said, well, sir, the graduate record exam is administered in Braille, but I won't take it. He said, why won't you take it? I said, because it won't let you know what I can do. If you want to know what I can do, sir, the only way you'll know for sure is to let me in. That was my first successful legal argument. I got into USC. But let me tell you a secret. I did not like law school. It was awful. Didn't like it at all. And I did not like, I took a class offered by the dean in my 3rd year of law school. I didn't like it either. And I would show up, I showed up at the beginning of the semester to check and see what he intended to cover. Showed up a couple of times in the middle of the semester to see if he's keeping pace. And then I'd go to the end and take the exam. Well, one of my middle of the semester visits, the dean made reference to some material that he had handed out at the last class session. So after class, I went up to him and I said, Dean, I'm sorry, I did not get the materials to which you referred. He said, well, of course you didn't, Dana. You weren't here. And your attendance has been rather sporadic. I said, I understand that, Dean, and I'll correct it. and I stopped going altogether. It was no longer sporadic. It was non-existent. But I took the test, took the finals, and I finished in the, I wasn't the great student in law school, but I finished in the top half of the class. The power was in my ability to imagine what I could do, notwithstanding the fact that there were people who thought otherwise. And the very interesting thing is, currently in America there are laws that require that organizations provide accommodations for people with disabilities. They can't say to you now, no, you're blind and we've never had a blind student before, so we won't let you in. They can't say that. They still do it, but they just can't say that. They have to figure out another way to give an excuse for not doing it. But that law was passed in 1990. And I went to Yale in 1970 and USC in 1974. Before there were laws, I had to do my own arguments about what I wanted to do. But I saw in myself the power to do it. So it was a matter of convincing those who had the power to make the decision that I could do it. Let me move to the idea of possibilities. The power to do is within me. I know that for sure. So it's a matter of seeing the possibilities and being willing to say yes to the possibilities. Yes to the possibilities. Now, since I've already mentioned going to Yale, I'm going to tell you how that happened. First of all, I made the decision when I was in the 3rd grade that I was going to go to college. This was a momentous decision. I was the 7th of 12 children. None of the 6 ahead of me had gone to college. My parents didn't go to college. I didn't know any other blind person who had gone to college. But in the 3rd grade, I decided that's where I wanted to go. And at 8 years old, the only college I had heard of was UCLA. So I thought, I'm going to UCLA. Why not? In the 11th grade, our U.S. history instructor was also a guidance counselor. And he devoted, one day he announced, I'm devoting tomorrow to preparing for college. I'll bring all my books with me, and you tell me which college you want to go to, and I will give you the addresses. This was back in the day when you had to write to colleges and get written paper applications and catalogs and send them in through the U.S. Postal Service. They didn't do that online stuff back then. So, next day, we start that process, and I sat in the back of the class, and the instructor started in the front, Dave, where do you want to go? And he went down the line. And I figured that somebody, before he gets to me, somebody's going to say UCLA. And when he gives them the address to UCLA, I'll just commit it to memory, and there I'll be. But I had another classmate. There were only 2 of us black students in class. And we sat together. Vicki sat on my left. And Vicki leaned over and whispered, she said, Dana, when Mr. Thompson calls on you, tell him you want to go to Yale, MIT, Purdue, and Princeton. And I turned to Vicki and I said, I don't even know what those places are. She said, you don't have to go to them. All you have to do is say that so we can impress the class. She said, one of us have to impress them, and they're not going to believe it from me. So sure enough, Mr. Thompson came around, and he got to me and he says, Dana, what colleges would you like the addresses for? I said, I'd like the addresses for Yale, MIT, Princeton, and Purdue. And the class said, ooh. So it worked. It was impressive. I was the only one who asked for addresses to colleges outside of the state of California. Most people were saying UCLA, Berkeley, Stanford. Nobody seemed to want to go outside California, and I named these schools. And I had no intentions of doing anything with them whatsoever. But I had a friend named Harvey. I mentioned Harvey earlier. He was a year ahead of me. We were in the tutoring organization together, and we were on our way to a conference one Saturday. He was driving, not me. He was driving, and I said, Harvey, guess what Vicki and I did in Mr. Thompson's class? And I told him the story I just told you, and I started laughing, and he started pounding on the steering wheel. He said, Dana, don't laugh. I said, why not, Harvey? It's funny. He said, don't laugh. You can go to Yale. I said, Harvey, I don't even know where Yale is. I mean, he said, doesn't matter. I just got accepted at Yale. I'm going. You can go to Yale. That was the first planting of the possibility that I could do something beyond what I had thought several years before, and that is that I was going to go to UCLA. He said, let me give you the name of the guy I've been in contact with. He gave me the name of that guy with the phone number. I can tell you to this day what his phone number is. And I called him. And I told him about myself. He asked me questions, and he said, you know what, I agree with Harvey. He says, here's what, I want you to write this down. You have your Braille writer and you can write these down? Yep. He says, here's where I think you should apply. He gave me the name of the institutions and the addresses. This is the same institutions I told you earlier. He said, I want you to apply to Columbia, MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. And this is what he said, his exact words. And as a safety valve, Stanford. So I applied to those colleges. The possibilities were expanding. It was then that I began to learn to say yes to the possibilities. You have to say yes to the possibilities, because when you say yes to the possibilities, then you start looking for the ways to make it happen. But if you don't believe it's possible, there's no point in trying to make it happen. You have to believe in the possibilities, say yes to the possibilities. I learned this through my business as a professional speaker. I'm going to share an incident that happened back in 1998 it was. August 31, 1998, at or about 10 o'clock in the morning, I received a call from a speakers bureau asking me if I were available to speak in Santa Monica, which is in Los Angeles County, in Santa Monica on Friday, September 18 at 4 in the afternoon. My calendar was free. I said, yes, I'm available. About 30 minutes later, I received a call from a woman in Washington, D.C. She was explaining that they were putting on a series of conferences. There would be 5 of them around the country. And they wanted to end each conference with a dynamic motivational speaker. She said, I mentioned that at our committee, and someone on the committee said, then you should get Dana Lamon. I never did find out who it was on the committee who said it, but the intent was that they were going to hire a different motivational speaker for each conference. But the first conference was going to be in Denver, Colorado. So she said, is it possible for you to be our closing motivational speaker on Friday, September 18 at 11 a.m. in Denver, Colorado? And I said, yes. Yes to the possibilities. When I hung up the phone with her, of course, I called United Airlines to see if, in fact, there was a plane I could get from Denver back to Los Angeles so I could be in Santa Monica at 4 o'clock that same day. Now, the value of saying yes to the possibilities is that subsequently I got a call from the Speakers Bureau saying that the event in Santa Monica was canceled. Now, if I had said no to the lady in Washington, D.C., sorry, I'm booked and I have to be in Los Angeles on Friday, September 18th, I would have missed the opportunity to speak in Denver, Colorado. As a result of my speaking in Denver, Colorado, I got a call from Washington, D.C. the following Monday saying, based on your performance on Friday, we've decided we're going to use you for all 5 conferences rather than get a different motivational speaker. When you say yes to the possibilities, you look for the way to make it happen, and it leads to other possibilities. There's an author named Stephen Johnson who wrote the book Where Good Ideas Come From. And he makes reference to a notion called adjacent possibilities. Sometimes we are thinking of something that looks like it's afar off. We would never reach it. You say, is it possible? Well, I don't think so. That's too far-fetched that we could do that. Is it possible that we could be transmitted from Taipei to Los Angeles without having to take a 13-hour flight? Right now, we might be inclined to say no. I would say that the best that you could say is not yet. Stephen Johnson says the adjacent possibilities are simply this. Look at what's right near you that's possible and move to that possibility. Once you move to that new position, there's a new set of possibilities next to you. And then move to that possibility. And then there's a new set of possibilities. And then you move to that possibility. And that's why I say the best answer is not yet. You're not quite close enough to it to reach it, but to say it is not possible, that doesn't make any sense. Because the universe of possibilities is wide open. Everything is possible within the universe. The question is, has your mind been open broad enough to reach out and grab that possibility that may seem distant? The only way that you can reach that possibility is to be willing to say yes. So I believe in the possibilities. Yes, it's possible. Or maybe not yet, but eventually I'll move to the position where it is possible. Eric said he wants to hear a story about my romantic life. And I said, so you want to hear a story about my wife? And he said, no, I want to hear about more than your wife. So I'm trying to think of some possibility stories. But I tell you a very interesting thing about my wife. My wife lives in New York right now. She, after raising our 4 children, she decided to go back to school and get a degree in creative writing. So she got a master's in creative writing and then was hired by Delphi University in New York to teach poetry. So that's what she does now, is teach poetry. And, but I met my wife on September 13, 1982 at 7 p.m. And here's the funny thing. This part is for Eric. And so I was active in church, and I dated a lot of the young ladies in church. And the pastor of the church says, Dana, I think you're trying too hard. I think you should just wait and let God send you a woman. And I'm thinking a little, well, anyway, when I said to him, I said, so what am I supposed to do? Sit in my room and wait for her to come falling down through the ceiling? And oddly enough, on September 13, 1982, at 7 p.m., I was sitting in my room, and the telephone rang. So you thought she was going to come falling through the ceiling. No, the telephone rang. And the person on the other line said, hi, my name is Jacqueline Jones. You don't know who I am, but a mutual friend gave me your phone number and told me that if I call you up, you'd show me a good time. Here's what happened, looking at the possibilities. When I was at Yale, I tutored in a program to help local students in their math and English. And in the geometry class that I tutored was a young lady named Lynn. When Lynn graduated from high school, she went to Mount Holyoke College. At Mount Holyoke College, she met Jacqueline, and they became friends. When they graduated from college, Lynn went off to the University of Connecticut to law school. Jackie went and got a job. But 2 years after working, Jacqueline decided to go to law school. So she called her friend Lynn, said, guess what? I'm going to law school. I've been accepted at UCLA. Lynn said, do you know anyone in Los Angeles? Jacqueline said, I know no one in Los Angeles. Lynn said, I know one person. I'll give you his phone number. You call him up. He'll show you a good time. September 13, 1982. September 14, 1982 was my 30th birthday. I wanted to go to Las Vegas for my birthday. The young lady that I was interested in at the time had told me no, but I believe in the possibilities, and I still wanted to go to Las Vegas. So I said, wait a minute, Jacqueline's in West Coast for the first time, maybe she'll go with me. So I called Jacqueline up on September 14 and I said, how would you like to go to Las Vegas this weekend? She said, sure. Okay. I said, well, there are 2 rules that you have to know before we go. 2 rules about me, 2 things about me. Rule number 1, I'm cheap. So we're going by bus.
Oh.
Because a blind man rides free if he has a sighted guide. Rule number 2, I'm cheap. So we're going to get 1 hotel room. I said, I'll be a gentleman. There will be 2 beds. I said, but it doesn't really matter about that because I'm going to be in the casino all the time. So it doesn't really matter. It was a 6-hour bus ride from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. 6 hours from Las Vegas back to Los Angeles. Time in between there for the 2 days we were there. You could learn a lot about a person talking to them for more than 12 hours. I learned a lot about Jacqueline. So that was September 18 and 19 that we went on that date. On September 26, I asked her to marry me.
Oh, wow.
Because I believe in the possibilities.
Yes.
And she said yes. Some people ask me, how did you know? I mean, why did you ask so quickly? And I said, and this also surprises people, I was engaged 5 times before I met Jacqueline. I knew exactly what I wanted and exactly what I didn't want. It was very easy to make that decision. Now, I was going to be nice. I didn't need to rush into it. I mean, I was 30 years old at that point. There's no need to rush. I said, okay, you're finishing your first year at law school. We can wait until you finish law school your 3rd year. She says, no, I actually want to get married after our first year. So 9 months after we met, we got married. And we've been married now for 30 years. I don't know if it's going to last another 30 years. It's supposed to, because when I got married, you know, in the wedding vows, sometimes they say, till death do you part. And I didn't like the idea of the word death being used in the wedding vows. So I promised to be with her for 70 years. I said, I'll stay with you 70 years. By then I'll be 100. I said, at that point, I'll leave you and find me an 18-year-old. And so I remind her from time to time. Hey, I only got 40 more years on my contract, you know. She tells me when I'm 100, nobody will want me. But I've never been 100, so I don't know if that's true or not. I'll have to wait until I get there. The possibilities. I will tell you honestly, one of my weaknesses as a blind person is I never had a whole lot of... it was very difficult for me to date. I was too upfront, too direct. And I remember being interested in a young lady, and I wanted to go out with her. And I didn't know, I mean, truly, when I decided I want to be with a young lady, I just want to be with the young lady. So when I asked her to go out, she said, well, where would you like to go? I said, doesn't matter, so long as it's with you. She thought it was such a corny pickup line, you know. But I was serious. You know, movies? I don't like movies. Dinner? well, I'll eat, but the important thing was being with her. That's the way I thought at the time. But some people, I don't know, ladies, I guess you don't like the direct. You know, I like the direct. You know, when I meet a young lady, I call her, okay, where is this relationship going? She said, Dana, let's just wait and see where it's going. And I said, wait and see where it's going? It's going to go where we make it go. Was that a time signal I got?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Oh, really? I've been talking a long time. I better move to the next word then. I keep talking about the possibilities. The other word. What was my third word? Oh, I was just checking to see if you were listening. See, if you didn't know, I would have changed it to something else, you know. Perseverance is the other thing that got me through, is being willing to just keep trying. I told you about the struggles I've had where people saying he's blind, he can't, he's blind, he can't. I encountered it in colleges, and even after I graduated. Here's one of the areas I had to persevere. I did not pass the bar exam on first try. It took me 3 tries to pass the bar exam. Perseverance is what was required for me to pass the bar exam because I just, you know, I'm one of those guys that believe there are lots of options. There's not just one option. So when I took the bar exam, the first one, I said, okay, yeah, well, I didn't pass it, let's try it again. And I didn't pass it the second time, and I said, well, but I improved. You know, my first score was 1107. You needed 1200 to pass. My next score was 1193. You need 1200 to pass. I said, well, we'll try it one more time. So I passed the bar exam. It required perseverance to do that. It required perseverance to argue against people, even after I passed the bar exam and I tried to get a job. There were people who told me no. Back, remember, this was before the laws were passed in America, so they'd say, no, you're blind. We're not going to hire you. No, you're blind. You know. So most of the jobs that I applied to, they said no. You know, our first year employees, they're required to do this, 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 and this, and we don't think you're going to be able to do it. But it's a matter of persevering and pushing past what other people say I can't do. Now I use 2 words, perseverance and persistence, and I want to make the distinction between the two. Persistence is when you believe that you have the right goal and the right approach to the goal. It just requires that you keep punching it and punching until you punch all the way through. Perseverance is you believe that you have the right goal, but maybe the approach is wrong. And so you change the approach to reach your goal. So sometimes persistence, sometimes perseverance, it's up to you to determine what you should do. But you should be willing to change the approach if your current method doesn't seem to be working. I don't let anyone on the outside of me tell me what I can and cannot do. Only I can determine my power. I have made the determination that I am willing to say yes to the possibilities. And once I set the goal of what I want to do, then I persevere until I reach that goal. So the 3 words that you should remember: power, possibilities, and perseverance. Recently, I wrote a set of I am statements. I wanted, in my latest book, Making the Moment Meaningful, I talk about self-determination as one of the 4 pillars for meaningfulness. And in self-determination, I talked about your need to define who you are. And I set out a set of 8 characteristics by which I want to be defined. 2 of those characteristics I'm going to give to you because they fall in this presentation. I am possibilities, and I am power. Now, in each of those characteristics, I give a little explanation, which I want to share with you, that start with the word to, as a way of explaining what I will do as a result of that characteristic. So, I am possibilities to reach beyond the limits of what is into the realm of what can be. And I empower to collaborate in making what can be a reality. I believe strongly in the possibilities. If I can't see them now, I might see them tomorrow. So I won't dismiss anything as being impossible. And I believe that I have the power, maybe not by myself, but collaborating with others, I have the power to make what can be a reality.
5 minutes.
And it's only necessary for me to persevere toward that end. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll entertain 5 minutes of questions. Questions. Ask anything. Don't raise your hand. Just speak up.
Speak up. Speak up.
This is Shiny.
Yes.
Dana, you're with a group of young people here in Kaohsiung.
Yes.
What do you have to say to the young people in Kaohsiung? Well, they cannot repeat your lifestyle, but what would you like them to try in the path of their career, their lives? What would you like to, like them to sort of challenge themselves, set up a right goal for themselves, to be able to, make their life a lot better?
Number one, let no one on the outside impose limitations on you. It's based on what you believe you have the power to do. Once you believe that you have the power to do and you can see the possibilities, then you do it. Sometimes you need encouragement. Sometimes you need someone else to plant an idea. I'm not saying the ideas have to be yours original. You can have Vicky, your Vicky in your life, who plants an idea in your ear, just as a joke perhaps. All through my experience, even through Toastmasters, I had people plant the ideas. It was someone else's idea that says, Dana, you should go into professional speaking. Dana, you should write a book. Dana, you should become an accredited speaker. Dana, you should. So it's okay for other ideas to come from people. And as long as those are positive, give them consideration. But if people say to you, Dana, you cannot, Dana, you cannot, excuse me, you cannot, you dismiss that person. No one on the outside knows how much will you have within you, what visualizations you can have in your mind. So when it comes to telling you what you can do, consider it. When it comes with telling you what you cannot do, figure out a reason to prove them wrong. All right, next question.
I have a question.
Answer.
Some of us have had negative upbringings. Everyone's saying you can't, just like you said in your speech. What would you suggest to those who have that kind of mindset that they can't? I know it's easy to say, just dismiss the negativity, but it's hard.
It is hard.
What would you say to them besides that? What would you suggest they actually do in order to overcome that negative mindset?
It's what should you actually do? I read a chapter in my book, The Soul's Mirror, about purging yourself of negativity. And as far as things that you should do, one of the things that I do, for example, is stay away from people who talk negative.
Yes.
Now, you can't always stay 100% away, but you think about it. You say, wait a minute, that person is always saying no. That person is always complaining. That person is always telling me I can't. So I'm going to try to spend less time with that person. In every area I can, I'm going to spend less time. I mean, I have sisters and brothers that I don't spend a whole lot of time with. I talk to them maybe twice a year. They live in Los Angeles. But I don't see them much because they're negative. And I don't want to hear negative. And it's not just negative for me. It's people who complain about everything. Nothing can be right. I have a sister, if you invite her to something, you know, I invited her to an event. I was getting an award. Invited her. If you invite her 2 months in advance, oh, it's too early. Don't tell me about it now because I don't know my schedule and I don't know what I'll be able to do. So I don't. So then if you wait a week before that, oh, you waited too late. I have too many things to do. It's just there is no good time. See, I've learned, stay away from people like that. So think about the people who are saying negative things. And when I say negative, just think about people who are complaining, this isn't good, this isn't right, that was bad. I mean, you have to identify what is negative and then say, how can I, first of all, purge your language from it. I find, let me give you an example about purging your language from it. I am 61 years old. I got aches in the hip joints, I got aches in the knees. And so I'm sitting down, I'll be sitting down for a while and I'll get up and I'm getting old, you know? I said, wait a minute, Dana, that's a negative statement. It doesn't sound negative. Listen to the words. I'm getting, nothing wrong with I'm, nothing wrong with getting, nothing wrong with old, really, except in the way I say it. So I realized I have to stop saying it. It doesn't, I mean, it still comes out of my mouth occasionally, but not as often as it used to. I have to stop saying it. So you identify the stuff that you're saying, even in joking. Sometimes people joke and they'll talk about someone, and it's actually a negative thing. Stop it. You just have to start purging yourself so that you start thinking of the positive things. My 5 minutes is probably up, but is there one more question? I'll answer some more questions during the break.
1 minute.
One more.
1 minute? Okay.
At the Toastmaster Club, people come and go, and I want to ask that what's your suggestion to members of both clubs to help members to find their goals, to continue their journey in Toastmasters, and what is your suggestion to members find a goal in Toastmaster Club?
That's absolutely correct. I tell people in my speeches, I did a speech at the International Convention in 2011, and in it I said, every time, this is the way to remind you, every time your club president or club treasurer asks you for dues, every time they ask you for dues, I said this with the president of the Toastmasters in the room too. I said, watch you think I get mad at me. Every time they ask you for dues, you stop and ask yourself, did I reach my goal in the past 6 months? And if the answer is no, I didn't reach my goal, then you start evaluating. I don't say you stop in Toastmasters, you say, why didn't I reach my goal? What did I do wrong? Or what did my club not provide for me to help me reach my goal? And then you go to the club and say, listen, I didn't reach my goal because, and I'm going to pay my dues, but I want you to understand that I need to reach my goal. But you know, you're right, people don't set goals for themselves. I mean, they come in and they get their CC and they get their AC, and then it's like they just come to the meeting, and I think the reason why people leave is because they don't have goals anymore. I had goals. First, improve humor. Then get into the world championship, win the world championship, be an accredited speaker. Then, here's the important one that people overlook. And now that I've done all that, you know, I'm the only Toastmaster in history to be both world champion and accredited speaker. Nobody else has done that. But once you do that, once you've reached just about everything, like Grace has been district governor and Eric is on his way, once you do that, it's still not time to leave, because now you have the responsibility to help the people who are coming along behind you. Toastmasters organization is not just a place to get, it is the place to give. All right? My time's up.
Give it up for our world champion. I'd like to invite our club president, Sonia Wang, as we would like to present a gift.
Thank you.
This gift is custom made by for you. You can touch it.
It
Okay.
is in Braille.
You know, it's interesting because I said, do they have Braille in, it says, Mac.
Yeah.
Jonathan Chen.
Thank you very much, Madam President.